I've been working from home, essentially writing full-time for about 4 years now. At first, the writing was my dissertation writing, and now that I am done with grad school and I'm doing this kind of academic content creation full-time, I spend my days writing Substack articles and scripts and outlines for YouTube videos. And I learned pretty early on that there are two main dangers for me with how food comes into play for my working schedule. The first is that I will get really caught up into my writing and I will forget to eat breakfast and or lunch, and then I will completely crash at 2 p.m. And the second danger is that I will be so sick of my work and trying to avoid writing that I will spend 2 hours making myself lunch and then have a hard time getting back on track. And my solution to that is just, if I do a good enough job prepping my groceries during the weekend, then during the work week, I'm good to go. I don't like to prep entire meals for myself. That just doesn't work for me, but I will prep components of things and I will prep my produce so that everything is kind of ready for me to use when I want it. So this is a bit of a different video than I would normally make, but I thought I would show how I prep my food for my work from home week ahead, and then how that actually plays out in action during a week of writing. I like to go into the grocery store with a little bit of a plan, but then just see what's available and what looks good. And then when I get home, I lay it all out in front of me. I do a little bit of inventory for what I have to work with, and I start to make a prep list. My goals are to get the produce prepped, to make a bit of a marinated bean salad, make some breakfast quesadillas, and some like potato pancakes that I can put in the freezer and then reheat for breakfast or for a snack. I want to marinate some meat. I want to make a little bit of an at-a-glance sheet to put on my fridge so I can see what my meal options are without even opening the fridge. And I want to make dinner for tonight. Am I gonna get to it all? I don't know. I'm just gonna start working and see how much I can get through before I'm tired and need to sit on the couch. It's like 5 p.m. on a Saturday right now. This is my entire plan for the night. I would make a self-deprecating joke about how I'm a boring 30-something, but to be honest, this is how I liked to spend my nights in my 20s as well. So, step 1, prep the produce. That took about 40 minutes, which is not that bad actually, and now all of my produce is prepped in a way that I'm happy with. I've got my mushrooms and my lettuce and asparagus, not washed, not prepped or anything like that, but sitting on a couple layers of paper towels to soak up any moisture, because that's always, I feel like, what goes wrong for me with produce, where I have to end up throwing it away, is that things get slimy. So this will just soak up some of that and hopefully make it last a little bit longer. Same thing with the cucumbers and carrots and ginger. I don't need to do anything to prep them, but I just like them stood up like this where I can see them a bit better rather than having them just be a jumble in a drawer. And these are just some like shitty little containers that I got a long time ago on Amazon, but they have this little layer at the bottom to separate the vegetables from the container. So again, it just helps with keeping things dry. And then my scallions and my celery, I just trimmed the tops off of because the celery leaves just get in the way and the scallion tops are always a little bit wonky, and I washed those tops and I started a new stock bag that I'll just keep in the freezer, and anytime I have things like this that would be good in a vegetable or chicken stock, something like that, I'll just toss them in the bag, and then when it comes stock time, I'll pull this out and toss it in. My broccoli and cauliflower I just trimmed and I put in this dish, which I just like, again, to keep it consolidated. I like having an organized fridge space. Half of my broccoli I have in that container and half I just started roasting plain unseasoned so that I have cooked broccoli in the fridge ready to add to something, or honestly just even to heat up and snack on. And then I also like to keep my broccoli stems because if you shave them and add them to a salad, they are very tasty, I think. Sometimes I do end up throwing these away if I don't use them, but for now at least, they can go in my fridge and I might add them to something. I have a lot of cilantro. This will not go bad before I use it because I love cilantro and I will put it on everything. So this I just washed and dried and it's still a little bit damp, inevitably, so I put it in this bag with, again, a couple paper towels just to soak up any additional moisture. And I separated out some of the stems to put aside because I'm going to make a green herby dressing for my bean salad that I'm making. So I'll use those stems for that. And then there are the things like peppers and fennel, zucchini, avocado. These I'm not going to do anything with, I'm just gonna put them in the fridge, they'll be fine. So now my next thing to do is to prep a couple of things that I can put in the freezer and pull out and reheat for breakfast or snacks. And I'm going to start with quesadillas, which are one of my go-to breakfasts, but I've never actually tried doing them this way, where I make it in advance and put it in the freezer. But, you know, I feel like I can do it. We're gonna find out. Let's say that the quality of this avocado determines the success of this venture. That's perfect. I feel optimistic. I will also take this opportunity to say, I'm sorry, I cannot give you recipes for anything that I'm doing. Sometimes when I show myself cooking online, people will ask me to give a recipe, but I just don't follow recipes. Sometimes I'll read a recipe or two as a starting point, but I always deviate and just kind of do whatever I'm in the mood for. And I've even tried writing down what I'm doing before, but it slows me down and I overthink it. And then I also, you know, part of the way that I cook is just adding a little bit as I go and everything. So all I can do is kind of describe what is going into something that I'm making. These quesadillas have black beans in them and I'm making a little bit of kind of guac, mostly just because I know that avocado doesn't freeze super well on its own. It thaws out okay, but it gets kind of mushy sometimes. So if you pre-mush it, it's better. I'm doing just some lime juice and tahini, and then I have this salsa chile chipotle that says it is smoky and spicy. I already put a little bit in, so hopefully it's not gonna like kill me. It's like not spicy at all. More. So I have my tortillas folded up on my baking sheets like this, and I'm just gonna kind of assembly line fill them all with cheese and guac and beans. I'm gonna pop them in the oven for just a little bit to kind of par cook them, which I don't even know if that's necessary for something like this, but it's what I'm gonna do. One of my character flaws, please forgive me, is that I'm not a big fan of cheese. I'm not a big fan of most dairy, to be honest. I don't know if that makes it better or worse, but I do like mozzarella, so that's what I use most of the time because it has just some structural benefits for something like this. You know, it acts as a little bit of glue and it puts a little bit of extra like fat and calories into my meals, which I need sometimes because, as I said earlier, sometimes I forget to eat until it's too late in the day. So if I get some nice calories into my meals where I can, then I have a better reserve of energy and my brain works better. Little more cheese. Now these are going into the oven just for a little bit. Always clean as you go in the kitchen. And the next thing that I'm going to try to make is, again, one of my go-tos when I want an easy, reliable thing to eat that will fill me up. But like with the quesadillas, I've never actually pre-made this and frozen it, so we're gonna see how this turns out. And with this one, I don't even have a clear idea of what it is because this is like a food type that exists in a lot of different cuisines in various forms. When I first made it, I was thinking of a Swiss rosti, but it's also, I guess, a little bit similar to like a latke. I just like shred a bunch of potatoes and I mix a bunch of stuff in, and sometimes I do one layer and then add a little cheese and another layer, and I just make like a crispy potato pancake. I'm doing yellow potatoes and sweet potatoes, and I might thinly slice some scallions and throw that in the mix as well. I really love cooking because it can be so improvisational. You kind of have to learn the rules and then you can improvise or personalize all the other things. Like with this, I know I need to shred my potatoes and then I need to salt them and squeeze out the excess moisture because otherwise it will be a mushy mess. But other than that, I can do a lot, make a lot of changes in my seasonings and things like that, and it will still turn out cohesive. Whether or not I love it is, dependent on whether I do a good job. But as long as I just follow the basic rules of what you need to do with the ingredients, I will end up with something edible. And if you, like me, spend way too much time on TikTok, you definitely know what bean soup is. It originated from this one time a creator, I don't know who, posted a recipe for bean soup, and somebody commented, "What can I use if I don't want beans?" And this has become kind of emblematic of the tendency of a lot of people on TikTok to center themselves and to assume that if a particular video doesn't exactly appeal to their lives and their interests, then it is a bad video and it should be changed to conform with what they want. So people now will refer to, the bean soupification of the ways that people interact with online content. And I do think that's fair. I think that happens. I think that could be what that commenter, whoever it was driven by, was just a frustration that a video they saw didn't exactly align with their personal tastes. But I also think that people who don't have a lot of culinary literacy feel unsure and intimidated and genuinely don't know what the rules are that they can or can't break. People who aren't super comfortable in the kitchen might not necessarily know what an acceptable substitution is or where the personalizations to a recipe can be made. And the good and bad news at the same time for those people is that you just kind of have to fuck around and figure it out, play around in the kitchen, make some things that are really, really terrible, make some things that you hate, make some things that totally fail to come out as anything edible or enjoyable. And that's how you really get comfortable. When I was growing up, my dad was a cook. He worked in a lot of different restaurants and hotels in the kitchens. And so there was just a lot of cooking in my house. I mean, not all that much. A lot of the times my dad would bring home leftovers from the kitchens, but he was a professional cook, so he taught me pretty well. I've also worked in a few different bakeries. I worked in one production bakery for 3 years. And so that helped me a lot with comfort and also with efficiency in the kitchen. But it was really when I started writing my dissertation that I started to rely on cooking and experimenting in the kitchen as a balance for the academic work I was doing, because I was spending hour after hour, day after day, just sat at a computer trying so hard to make my brain work and to make things come together in my dissertation in a way that fit with the expectations and fit, any kind of formal logic or anything like that. And I would get very frustrated with feeling like I didn't know what I was doing, or feeling like there were certain rules that I needed to be following that either I wasn't following, or sometimes I didn't even know what those rules were. And so having time in the kitchen to play around, be on my feet, use my hands, improvise, feel a kind of confidence and also a kind of reassurance that if things went bad, it would be okay. It was very helpful to me. It was very grounding for me. Now that I'm not dissertating anymore, these stakes are a lot lower and I don't get as emotionally bound up in my writing. I still need to stand up and shake out the tension sometimes, and I still get a little bit stressed about my self-imposed deadlines. And I still do love cooking, obviously, it's something that I really enjoy, and I do still appreciate the break it gives me from the purely academic or lightly academic, intellectual, computer-based work that I do all day. But I don't rely on it emotionally. in the same way that I used to. If you are watching this and you do any kind of writing work, or you are a student, an undergrad or a grad student, I think it is really beneficial to have an escape, maybe not cooking, maybe, you know, a sport or an instrument, or just like something that you can do that you feel a degree of freedom and some kind of confidence with as well, that lets you break out of your staring at the screen mode and lets you play around a little bit and engage other parts of yourself. Okay, I ended up making just 4 of these. They are a little bit thicker than I would normally do, but I think that should be okay because they are going into the oven. And I'm not going to fully cook them. I think I'm just going to halfway cook them, and then when I reheat them, I will fry them, shallow fry them, a little bit of oil in the stovetop. So I don't want them to be like crispy now. I want to get them crispy in the pan when I actually cook them for myself to eat. I might not get to everything on my prep list today, but there's always tomorrow. Today is just Saturday. The goal is just to collaborate with my future self so that when it's Wednesday at noon and I am in the middle of working on something and I'm really in the zone, but I need to eat and I don't want to just have a piece of toast, but I also don't really want to stop working, I can pull something out of the fridge and make it for myself. Or so that when it's, you know, Thursday night and I've been working all day and I am not super in the mood to cook dinner, but I have to, I can look in my fridge and everything is all nice and neatly organized. Unclear whether the grapefruit gin and tonic I'm making right now is going to increase or decrease my likelihood of getting through the rest of my prep list. Could go either way. But you know, it's 7 o'clock now. I've been in the kitchen for like 2.5 hours at this point, prepping. I am ready to sip on a fun little drink and put on some music and keep on chopping and working and whatever, but whatever else I get through today is bonus because I have breakfasts now. I'm gonna make these pretty because we deserve nice things for no reason at all. Bam, look at that. So pretty. That's delicious and refreshing, and we'll see if it energizes me or sends me to the couch. Who knows? My frozen quesadilla was a great success. That reheated so well and it was really tasty. Good job, Carson. It's 12:30 in the afternoon now and I'm a little bit behind schedule, but my schedule is basically just me blocking out on my calendar the tasks I want to do and roughly how long I think they're going to take. So sometimes I'm wrong because the task just ends up taking more or less time than I predicted it would. It's usually more time. Today I'm behind schedule not because the actual work was taking longer, but because I had to make time to watch the Bad Bunny Super Bowl halftime show twice this morning. So I did that, so check that off the list. I didn't actually have that on a checklist, but there is a checklist because one of the things that I like to do for organizing my mind, in addition to having it on the calendar, the things I want to do, is make a list of the things I want to actually accomplish. And for today, there aren't that many things that I actually want to complete and be able to check off a list. I did just finish in that first hour and a half or so of work one of my objectives, which was to get the weekly subscribers chat going for the Paradise Lost Book Club. So I was typing up some notes on this week's reading selection and posing some questions and just getting the ball rolling in the chat. So that's one item checked off. Really, the reason I make the checklist is just because it feels good to write a check through a box. But for most of the rest of the work that I'm going to be doing today, there isn't going to be a completed thing that I can check off at the end of it. I'm just going to be chipping away at a couple of ongoing projects. So for the next few hours, I'm going to be working on outlining an article that is about Book 2 of Paradise Lost, and specifically looking at the characters' sin and death and drawing from a little bit of scholarship about the abject and the sublime. I have some notes already written out for this, so I'm not starting from scratch right now, but right now it's really just kind of sketchy and loose, and I want to make it a lot more fleshed out. So I'm going to jump into that work now, and I'll do a couple Pomodoro work blocks, 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off, see where I'm at, maybe break for lunch, maybe keep working if I'm in the zone and not too snacky yet. But I think probably an hour from now is when I'll take lunch. We'll see how it goes. So one of the things that I meal prepped for myself on Saturday was this bean salad, which is just white beans and some celery and I think scallions, and I made a dressing for it that's like tahini and a bunch of herbs and lemon juice, and that's basically it, some garlic. And we ended up eating most of it yesterday, actually, so there's only a little bit left. So I'm going to take what's left of this and kind of bulk it up with some cucumber and avocado and put it on a couple pieces of toast, and that's gonna be my lunch. I've already had my 2 double shot Americanos of the day, which is my usual caffeine intake that I cannot function without. I am fully addicted to caffeine. It's fine, it's not one of the bad addictions. But even that amount of caffeine is not gonna cut it for me today, so I'm making a little bit of black tea as well. I'm gonna brew it super strong and then probably have it as iced tea. Another perfect avocado. Smash some of the beans and avocado in here as well to make it a little bit more spreadable. A couple pieces of toast, beans. I'm just gonna use the cutting board as a plate. This is so like garlicky and herby. It's really tasty. And then I've got some pea shoots that are way overpriced. Like this little package of pea sprouts I think costs like €3, which is silly, but I like them. So I'm gonna put some of those on as well and rip them in half. and my bag of washed and prepped cilantro, which, as I said, I put on literally everything, and I like a lot of it. Cut my toasts in half so that they're easier to eat. And that's lunch. Look at that. It's so beautiful. Can you see it? Oh no, my cilantro. It's so beautiful, so green. And that literally took me 5 minutes to make. And now I'm gonna go eat this lunch, but not on camera because this is going to be really messy and unglamorous, and I don't feel like watching back and editing footage of myself eating beans on toast. After my lunch break, I made myself a little iced tea latte and got right back into work drafting that Substack article about Paradise Lost. I did get derailed for a little while in the later afternoon by a headache, but still managed to get in what I felt like was a full day of writing, setting me up well for the week ahead. And then I just wanted to show this salad that I made for dinner because I mentioned while prepping my vegetables that I like to save my broccoli stems, and I did end up using this one. I shaved a bunch of fennel and asparagus and then grated this broccoli stem nice and thin, tossed it all with a light lemony mustardy dressing, and had that as a side salad with my dinner, which was seared mushrooms and a pork tenderloin. That was really, really good. My day is off to such a wonderful start. Had my quesadilla, having my coffee, whatever. I was starting to do some work on this Substack article that I'm writing, which, as I said, involves the abject, which is a theory that I have a little bit of trouble wrapping my head around sometimes. It's kind of abstract, it's a little complicated, it's outside of what any of my research in grad school really dealt with, and so in order to write about it, I need to learn more about it. So I decided I would listen to a podcast while I was having my breakfast, and I found a podcast called Theory-ish that is some academics talking through complicated theoretical concepts in a chattier way. Fantastic. Exactly what I need, right? They have an episode on the abject. I start listening to it. They introduce their guest, Megan Allen, who I have now Googled extensively. And when she's giving her research bibliography, she says that her research specialty is about sainthood in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, blood and sacrifice in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. My feelings for Buffy cannot be expressed through coherent words. I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I am so delighted that I was just trying to learn more about the abject, and I landed on this person's research work, and I don't think she's actually going to be talking about Buffy in the podcast episode, sadly, but I have found a published article of hers that's open access, and the title starts with, "What would Buffy do?" So I'm in for a fantastic day. I'm not sure I will stay on target with the things that I wanted to do today because I now need to read the article, What Would Buffy Do? But I'm not mad about that digression. There is a journal for international Buffy studies called Slayage, and they have something called the Mr. Pointy Award. I feel really good about my choices in life in general, and I don't believe in regrets. But I am currently envisioning a different path I could have taken in life where I am an actual Buffy scholar. There's no time for that. I'm just going to read other Buffy scholars' works. This is so beautiful. I'm so happy.
Makes you have to confront life and death simultaneously. The fact that we all died.
So after a couple hours of doing work that was a mix of reading scholarship about the abject, listening to this podcast on the abject, daydreaming about becoming a Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and writing notes on book 2 of Paradise Lost, I have been interrupted by a headache beginning to brew that feels like it's really working up steam to ruin my day. I had a little bit of a headache yesterday and I got rid of it, and now it feels like that was just the overture to what is trying to become a full-blown turn off the lights, bury my head under a pillow headache. I did have to turn off the lights and bury my head under a pillow for an hour last night, but I thought that I defeated the headache. No. All of this to say, I'm taking a long break. It's like 3 p.m. now. This is later than I would normally eat lunch, but headaches kill my appetite, so I am going to step away from the work for a little bit and make something that should hopefully be tasty enough that I will eat it even though my body isn't communicating hunger to me. I'm gonna make kind of like dan noodles a little bit, got my chili bean doubanjiang sauce. I've got my tahini, ground meat, scallions, ginger, whatever. I'm gonna make some spicy, saucy, meaty noodle thing, and I'm going to eat it, and maybe it will fix me. My goal is just to brown some of this meat with some like ginger and a little bit of mushrooms and onions and, Szechuan peppercorns and scallions and all that kind of good aromatic, tasty stuff. And then I'm gonna make a spicy sesame sauce with the tahini. I'm gonna cook some soba noodles because those are the only noodles I have. And I'm gonna toss some pea shoots and cilantro on top and maybe thaw out a little bit of frozen spinach and add that to the mix as well. It's gonna have protein, carb, and spice, which I fully believe that if something is spicy enough to hurt me, it is spicy enough to heal me from whatever ails me. I will show what the finished product looks like, and we will see if I manage to get back to work today. I normally work roughly 10 to 6. Started working at 10 o'clock this morning as usual. As I said, it's 3 p.m. and depending on what path this headache takes, I may or may not clock in after lunch. Signing off for now. I'm gonna make some noodles. Naturally, I never get these headaches on days when all I want to do is sit on the couch and watch TV anyway. I only get these headaches on days when I am feeling motivated and excited to get work done. Go figure. Anyway, it's been 2 hours now since I started making my lunch, which was delicious, and then laid in bed with a pillow over my face for a while. I'm going to try to get 1 more hour of work done. Smoothie for a boost. I've got frozen mango and raspberries and cashew butter and collagen powder and coconut rice milk. I'm gonna blend it up. It's gonna give me a little brain boost. I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna work for 1 more hour, and then I'm going to watch episodes from Sean Lowe's season of The Bachelor on FaceTime with my sister and my friend. And that's just what today is. With the power of my smoothie and my sheer force of will, I have made it through another hour and a half of work. It's 7 o'clock now. Have I been working for 2 hours? Possibly. I have no idea. Regardless, I'm going to call it a night. I still feel motivated. I still feel interest. But, a foundational part of Ernest Hemingway's writing process was to stop writing while you still have a little more gas in the tank so that that can carry you over into the next day. his writing advice was not, in fact, to write drunk, edit sober. So I'm going to take his advice and stop now while I still have a little bit of gas in the tank, and that will fuel me tomorrow morning. I also just, I think I've done about as much Julia Kristeva as I can for a day. I've been reading the same paragraph about vomit and shit for like 20 minutes now. These bodily fluids, this defilement, this shit are what life withstands, hardly and with difficulty, on the part of death. She writes beautifully about shit, but I just, I've had enough. I can't take any more shit today, I have only 2 goals for my workday today. Number 1, finish prepping for the next YouTube video I want to film so that I can film it this week, hopefully tomorrow. Goal number 2, don't get a headache. So far this morning, I have been working still on that Substack article about Book 2 of Paradise Lost, The Abject and the Sublime. That is still really where my interest is lying in my work projects that I have for the week. I'm feeling really like I'm trying to figure stuff out with that, and it's giving me a lot to like sink my mental teeth into. That's a terrible image, but that's what I'm feeling more pull towards right now. But realistically, my deadline for that is still a week and a half away, whereas it's been a while since I was working with anything on YouTube, so I should prioritize the YouTube stuff so that you guys know I haven't forgotten about you. And because there's some projects I'm trying to wrap up with that I would like to finish in a strong way. So I'm going to put the Kristeva to the side and put the Paradise Lost to the side and focus in on this video that I'm trying to get finished up. It's actually 2 or 3 videos, but I'm going to work on just one of them today. I've got one video outline that's like 90% done, another one that's like 70% done, and one that's like 50% done. And so what I'm going to spend the rest of the day doing, hopefully, is finishing up the one that's 90% done, get it to 100% done so that I can film it, edit it, get it out there, work on those other projects as well. And these projects that I'm working on right now, Substack articles, YouTube videos, social media engagement, these are specific to this academic social media content creation work that I'm doing now. But generally this like time management strategizing that I'm doing is what I developed during my dissertation writing. I don't think that the time management and organization that I'm doing is at all specific to academic content creation. This is something that you have to do generally if you work from home, or if you are primarily working on writing projects, or if you are juggling multiple projects. You have to do this management of breaking large tasks down into smaller ones and prioritizing which projects you should work on first, and sometimes fighting your instincts or fighting your desire to do the thing that is fun and engaging first, because what you actually need to do is the thing that has higher importance right now. Anyway, I'm going to dig into finalizing my prep for this YouTube video for the whole remainder of my workday, honestly, the next like 5 or 6 hours or so, and I'll break for lunch somewhere in the middle of that. I'll drink about a gallon of water throughout the rest of my workday, and hopefully I will achieve these 2 modest goals of finishing my prep for this video and not getting a headache. Stein full of ice water with a little bit of lemon. This is in fact not 90% done. I don't know what I was thinking. I am taking a little bit longer again today to make lunch than is like the most efficient way to do it. I liked the idea of adding some roasted sweet potatoes to the lunch I wanted to make, and I'm out of roasted broccoli already, so I decided to just do a little bit of roasting of vegetables for my lunch, but also just to re-up my supply in the fridge. And so I'm embracing a lunch that takes a little bit longer, also because I figured that might be good for me since I am aware of the fact that there's still a little bit of tension in my neck and shoulders that could be a warning sign for a headache. And so I might as well take the opportunity to step away from my computer, stand up on my feet, shake out my body, and reset a little bit before continuing on with my work today. I'm making sure to use avocado in my lunch today because avocado is full of fats that are good for my brain. Not that my brain necessarily is the reason why I'm getting a headache. I don't know, I'm not a scientist. I just figured avocado might be medicinal for me today. The lunch that I'll be adding the avocado and the sweet potatoes to is going to be a soba noodle salad. My lunch yesterday was so good. So I'm gonna have soba noodles again, but in a different version. And if I hadn't decided to roast vegetables as part of my lunch making today, this would have actually been a pretty efficient lunch to make for myself because I'm going to use this pot of water to cook my soba noodles and my edamame, which is what I'm putting in there to get a little bit of a protein boost into my lunch. I keep frozen edamame in the, freezer. And this is old, so it's freezer burned as hell, but it's fine. I can just kind of bring this pot of water up to a boil, put my colander of edamame like that in it just to cook for a few minutes, and then add in my soba noodles, which also only take like 5 minutes. And then just while those things are cooking, chop up some vegetables. And it's getting mixed in with this sauce that I just mixed up, which is peanut butter and gochujang and a bunch of lime juice, a little bit of honey, a little bit of soy sauce. Assemble it all together, and that's lunch. Okay, so from the time I put my water on to boil to this very moment, that was probably like 15 minutes at most, and now I get to assemble my salad. Got my soba noodles and my edamame. I did grate some carrots, so that goes in. I've got my cubed up cucumber and my cubed up half of an avocado and some sweet potatoes. Oh, this looks so good. Look at that, that's already so nice and colorful and pretty. Oh no, a cucumber. Pour over my sauce and chuck on a bunch of my cilantro. And then that's it. I'm just gonna throw this stuff in the dishwasher and then I'm gonna eat my salad. Amazing. I have now finished my prep for that video. It's only an 11-page script / outline, which is pretty good for me. I normally am upwards of 20 pages. I'm working on one video outline right now that's already 30 pages, and I still have a fair amount left to do on that one. So they definitely get a little bit lengthy, but I'm done with the video prep now. And that means I can get back to what I really want to be doing, which is reading critical theory about vomit. Focus, Carson. Today is going to be a 2 quesadilla morning. All right, I'm finally having a work day that is going just as I planned it to. Hopefully that continues. And so now I'm going to make myself a pretty quick lunch so that I can get right back to work and keep things on track. It's just an omelet, but I add some chickpea flour to it. The chickpea flour bulks it up a little bit to make it more substantial than just 2 eggs. And I don't know why, but I swear to God, it keeps it from sticking to the pan also, which is very nice for me. So I'm just going to put a couple of eggs into this little blender thing and add my chickpea flour and blend it, because if I don't use the actual blender, it's always lumpy and nobody likes a lumpy omelet. I'm not gonna do anything crazy with the seasoning in the actual eggs, just a little bit of salt and pepper. I'm gonna add a fair amount of chili crisp to it, so I don't need to season the actual eggs. It's gonna be flavorful from the chili crisp. 2 spoonfuls of chickpea flour. That's probably right. This is definitely too big of a container for this amount of eggs, but whatever. Okay, got my eggs and chickpea flour blended up, and then inside the omelet, I'm going to put just some cherry tomatoes and asparagus. The cherry tomatoes are left over from the last time I went grocery shopping, like 2 weeks ago, so I'm surprised that they're still good because they've just been sitting out on my counter. And slice my asparagus, and I will be using this comically oversized pan because it's the only one that's not in the dishwasher right now. The method is just to get this nice and hot and put a healthy amount of olive oil in, pour my eggs in, asparagus, tomato, chili crisp, cilantro, omelet it over. That's it. This is gonna take like 5 minutes. Hot. I cannot overstate how short that was. That was no time at all. I already put some chili crisp in the actual omelet, but now I will put a little bit more on top. Add on my cilantro. Wow. Beautiful. When I was doing my meal prep on Saturday, I marinated some thin slices of pork in like curry paste and lime juice and brown sugar, and I put it in the freezer because it was gonna expire before I had a chance to eat it unless I had frozen it. I pulled it out of the freezer last night to thaw in the fridge because my plan was to go to the gym this afternoon and then make myself a nice hearty like pork and rice and veggie bowl after the gym. But now it's snowing a bunch, so I cannot possibly go to the gym. I must instead stay cozy inside my apartment, watching the snowfall and doing a bunch of research on madness in 19th century English life and literature. It's not my choice. That's just now required of me, that's what has to happen. I've been working on this outline for a video about the madwoman in the attic figure in literature for months now, like 3 months probably. I've been working on it, not nonstop, you know, I'll start working on it a couple days and then put it away for a week or two, come back to it, and I'm coming back to it right now after like 3 weeks without looking at it. And I wanted this week to start to push that video plan towards the almost done phase, but I can't, because every time I go back into the outline, I notice another area for expansion and research. And I mean, I was just like, okay, I'll write up some quick notes about asylums in the 19th century. I'll brush up a little bit of research on that, whatever. But then I remembered that Mary Wollstonecraft's unfinished, posthumously published novel, Maria, or The Wrongs of Woman, is about women in asylums and the way that madness was weaponized against women trying to leave unhappy marriages. And so now I have to go back into that novella and read it and write up notes about that and include that in my video outline. I think that tonight I'm just going to be spending hours and hours and hours working on this video outline. Like a cozy Friday evening spent watching the snowfall and writing up notes about women and madness and property in 19th century literature. That's a pretty good time. And I can still have that nice substantial meal of pork and rice and veggies, except now instead of giving me food to repair my body after going to the gym, it's going to be giving me food to fuel up for the long night of research and writing ahead. This ended up actually being very accurate, possibly more accurate than I would have wanted of a picture of what a work week usually looks like for me, right down to the headaches and the tangents. Those pre-made quesadillas were groundbreaking. I'm going to need those in my freezer at all times now, and they took very little time to meal prep as well. So those are permanently in the rotation from now on. The lunches I made this past week, some of them took longer to make than others. But having done my usual post-grocery shopping process of inventorying what I bought and prepping all of my produce to have it ready to go made a huge difference for me, so that when I was going to make my lunch, when I was standing in the kitchen, I was avoiding for myself that feeling of, I have no idea what's in my fridge, and even if I did, I don't know what I would make with it. The only thing that had been on my prep list to do last Saturday that I didn't end up doing was making like an at-a-glance sheet for my fridge. I had this idea that I would make a list of quick lunches I could make and maybe some dinner ideas as well that I would then like paste up on my fridge so I could just look at it and know what my options were. And while I didn't end up doing that, I did last Sunday just like make a list of a few ideas of lunches that I could have and then put them into my calendar where I do all of my work week scheduling. And I didn't follow my scheduled lunches exactly. I had told myself that I was going to have my chickpea pancake on Tuesday, and I ended up having it on Thursday, and I hadn't planned on making those dan noodles at all. I had just like a soba noodle bowl planned that I was going to make. But spending that little bit of time thinking about how I can turn my groceries into meals throughout the week just again helps me feel like more prepared and like I have more of an idea of what my options are when I'm standing in my kitchen. I only do my full grocery shopping every 2 weeks, so this weekend, I might run to the grocery store to pick up some leafy greens and things like that that go bad more quickly, and I should get some tortillas and cheese to make more of those breakfast quesadillas, but I'm not gonna have to do that whole prep night that I did last Saturday. I try to make sure to, in the first week after grocery shopping, eat more of the things that go bad more quickly, so I don't have any like cucumbers left or lettuce, but I do still have potatoes and cauliflower, red pepper, fennel, things that don't really go bad in the fridge. I have eggs, I have shrimp and chicken in the freezer. There's always beans. So this weekend I'll spend a little bit of time, again, just thinking about how I can turn those different things into meals and maybe sketching out on my calendar what days I might eat which kinds of things. But again, I'll just go with the flow when the week actually comes and just see what feels appetizing to me, see what I have the time and the inclination to make, and go from there. And hopefully it will be another week of good writing and interesting work.